What if I told you traffic could have ended in the 1960s? That one man cracked the code, a systems thinker, a pioneer, a genius. Well, there really was a man named John H. Zeisel. He did develop a groundbreaking model for cities of the future. Cities tested it. It worked. Then they sort of ignored him, and then he vanished. And look, I am not gonna stand here and tell you he solved everything or that his insights were flawless. They weren't. But his methods really could have changed the way we live in our cities forever. And this is the story of how his work disappeared. I want to start by saying I don't hate cars. I own one. I like driving fast sometimes. And I can see why everyone thinks they should own a car. Freedom, convenience, independence, air conditioning, there are downsides, obviously. The obvious being other people with their freedom, convenience, and AC. In the US alone, 140 million people drive 3 billion miles every day, burning 22 million gallons of fuel, generating 5 million tons of carbon dioxide. That's just for the US alone. In 2019, a paper published in the prestigious Nature magazine calculated our love affair with cars has gone too far. You may never have heard of them. Their main contribution to science is warning us about global warming. But they also found something else. On average, 27% of trips worldwide are made by private car, but cars occupy 93% of urban land. Their conclusion: cars dominate city space out of proportion to their use. This isn't news. Anyone who's been stuck in LA traffic knows cars suck. But for a long time, there was no concrete solution to gridlock until John Hickson Zeisel. Zeisel grew up in New York City and got a degree in industrial engineering from Cooper Union. Then he went to MIT where he earned a master's in transportation engineering. By the late 50s, he was working as an urban planner. And in 1960, he started his own firm. There were a few problems. Most engineers focused on building more roads and intersections. Zeisel wasn't impressed. More roads mean more asphalt, more destruction of neighborhoods, and more emissions. Intersections just create new choke points. He decided to go back to school, except instead of studying cars, he studied people. In the early 60s, he learned how human brains process information. He discovered how decision-making works. He saw how people react to congestion. He read about game theory and cybernetics, which is basically how complex systems control themselves. He devoured all of this information and synthesized it into a single system, one that understood drivers as much as cars, one that could simulate how people move through a city. It was complicated, but in practice, his system was very simple. It used readily available tech of the time, computers. He wanted to use them to monitor and redirect traffic in real time. Basically, Zeisel created an algorithm. His system collected data from loop detectors buried in the pavement, which measured traffic volume at intersections. They sent info to central computers that analyzed it and compared it to predicted volumes based on time of day and traffic patterns. If necessary, they diverted traffic using variable message signs, adjusting traffic light timing and activating cameras to catch drivers who ran red lights. His system also relied heavily on public transport hubs. He built large park and ride lots outside the city centers and invested heavily in rail, bus lines, and pedestrian infrastructure. He also put in some restrictions on private vehicles. For example, banning trucks from the busiest routes during peak hours. And while most of his ideas seem mundane now, there was one idea that was radical, even controversial. To reduce demand, he restricted private car usage in congested areas. You couldn't drive your car everywhere. His concept was similar to congestion pricing implemented today in cities like London and Stockholm, where drivers pay a fee for entering central areas. He called these zones no-car corridors. You could still enter them by car, but they had to be treated as transit only. The idea was radical, so radical that no American city adopted it, but 3 cities gave it a try. In 1966, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority asked Zeisel to test his theories on their system. For 6 months, His team monitored traffic and MBTA service, making real-time adjustments. The results were immediate. Transit use increased and travel time decreased. Cars were 40% less likely to clog downtown streets. Zeisel's team next headed to Chicago. They were invited by Mayor Richard J. Daley, who called Zeisel's work genius, but progress there was slower. Daley died halfway through the project. His successor was skeptical. Still, Zeisel's team managed to gather enough evidence to show the viability of the system. One thing became clear, though: they needed political support. So they traveled to Seattle, where the mayor was excited to try the system. But in Chicago, it was a different story. The mayor didn't care, neither did the state government. They didn't want to limit people's driving freedom. They didn't want to invest in transit. They didn't want to hear about it. Zeisel's work was done. He left the US in 1970 for Zurich. But the same problems existed everywhere. People loved their cars, politicians loved their donors, and the status quo was comfortable. 5 years later, Zeisel left urban planning. Today, Google uses AI to map traffic patterns, optimizing routes and reducing travel times. It's still far from perfect, but imagine what it could be if we combined Google Maps and Zeisel's model. Imagine if we eliminated all parking minimums, reorganizing street space for biking, walking, and trees. Imagine if we limited private vehicles to certain zones. Imagine if congestion meant higher prices, incentivizing people to use public transit or ride share. It's not a pipe dream, it's already been done. But meanwhile, Zeisel slipped into obscurity. He lived quietly in Switzerland, running a small consulting company. He died in 2016. He's buried in an unmarked grave. In the 2000s, a European research team rediscovered Zeisel's original papers. They didn't even know they were rediscovering a model that was 50 years ahead of its time. They published their findings in 2011. They called it dynamic flow redistribution. Today, urban planners consider Zeisel's work a vision lost to politics. His innovation came at the wrong time. During the 1960s and 70s, federal highway funding created a freeway boondoggle. Cities across the US expanded freeways even if they didn't need them, creating massive networks of blacktop that prioritized cars over people. We still sit in traffic. We still burn time, fuel, and sanity. We still pollute. All because some guy named John Zeisel pissed off the wrong people. But maybe we can turn it around. Maybe we can turn his lost vision into reality. Cities like Bogota, Medellin, Paris, Oslo, Singapore, and Mexico City have already invested in congestion pricing, electric vehicle bans, low emission zones, and public transit. It's not easy. There will be pushback. People love their cars, businesses fear losing customers. But it needs to happen. Every year we wait makes things worse. Every year we burn more fossil fuels, demolish more homes, build more freeways, waste more time. And every year, John Zeisel's vision slips a little further away. So what do you think? Do you think Zeisel might have solved traffic? Would you let the government limit what car you drive and where you drive it? Let me know in the comments below. And check out this video on the biggest car mistakes of the 20th century or this video on the rise of super cities. I'll see you next time.